Welcome to the NitWits, a weekly roundtable discussion on the Penn State Nittany Lions, now in its 25th season. Our panel features a longtime Penn State media and NitWits tag team, Neil Rudell of the Altoona Mirror and Mark Brennan of Lions 24/7 with Fight on State. Between them, they've covered Penn State for more than 80 years. The NitWits are hosted by WTAJ's Anderly Penwell, and each week we welcome a former Nittany Lion as our special guest analyst. The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed and Solani Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntington. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Remax Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage, no matter what type of weather, we're a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store. By Kogan Electric, lighting the way for you. By NovaCare, Altoona and State College, the power of physical therapy. By Fullington Tours, offering round-trip transportation to and from Beaver Stadium from locations in State College and Altoona. By Blair Candy Company, the one-stop shop for all your tailgating needs. Candy, snacks, paper supplies, and more. By Lions 24/7 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday.
Welcome to Nittany Nation Overtime.
Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Nittany Nation Overtime. I'm your host, Anderly Penwell, joined, of course, by Mark Brennan and Neil Riddell. And this week, our guest is Bill Cons. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thrilled to be back.
All right, so Penn State
renewed your contract. Yeah, one year renewable. Glad to be here.
So Penn State coming off that 33-14 win, a bit closer than many expected. But where should we start with this whole thing?
Go ahead, Neil.
Well, I mean, coming off Auburn and the fact that you jump out 14-0 for a noon game against a MAC team, I think in some ways it was a little understandable, but it was still a little bit disappointing. They didn't sustain that intensity, and they've now gone 2 games against a MAC team where a second quarter they've just settled into a malaise and kind of kept Central Michigan hanging around, didn't really deliver a knockout punch. So I think those are things that'll bode well for them going forward to sort of, correct that sustained intensity.
Yeah, I think there's some teachable moments. The odd thing to me is that we've seen how many of these games, these noon kicks after a big win, where Penn State comes out flat at the beginning of the game. This was different. They actually came out and played really well, go up 14-0, a big turnover. The crowd was sort of rocking, and then second quarter, end of the first quarter, the air just sort of came out. Didn't get back into it till halftime when the 82 team came out and was honored. But I do think it was good that after Central Michigan ties the score up at 14-14, showed a lot of heart, showed a lot of fight, Penn State kind of never panicked, just came back, made the plays that needed to win, and won rather comfortably. I think it could have been even more, but they got a lot of players in, kept working on that depth. Not the perfect game, obviously, afterward. James Franklin didn't seem really lit up by the way that game went. A win's a win, which is great, but some teachable moments going back into Big Ten play.
Bill, and in those moments where it is like, a win is a win, like Mark said, as a player moving forward, how do you, not come off that high of the Auburn, but not hang on and carry that negative momentum?
Sure. I think complacency is always a threat, and as Neil stated, it's an early game followed by an impactful road win. I don't know what the big fuss is about. I really don't see how a 19-point win, the only people that should be upset about this are the people that took the points and bet Penn State. I mean, they didn't cover whatever, but, you had Clifford start out, I think, 8 for 8, right? We're up 14-0 early. Yeah, did Central Michigan have a few tricks up its sleeve? Sure. I mean, that's their Super Bowl to come into a place like this and do well. I thought they had some rather creative ways. There was a tight end in motion on a 4th and 1. He stops, takes the snap for a first down. So give them some credit too to not get blown out early. Was it as big a gap at the end? But Penn State never trailed. The biggest thing to me, what I see at this phase is this team. For the 3rd consecutive week, you see 0 turnovers. They had 1 turnover this entire season, and that bodes very, very well should we keep that up. But overall, I thought it was a solid win.
Yeah. I think when the story of 2022 is ultimately written, this is not even going to be a footnote, this game. But we do shows after every single game, and for us, that's the minutia of it. And it's good to know where a team is heading back into Big Ten play. So, there's absolutely no reason for anybody to panic off of this. I think it would have been a little bit surprising if there wasn't a letdown at some point along the way. But they do have to get these things tightened up, because you look ahead to the middle of October, and it's going to be a grind. So I think the key now is they better come into that Northwestern game super focused.
Well, and starting with your kicker.
Yeah.
I mean, you're these games, the little things are going to add up to big things. Joey Porter has shot another pick 6, but I do want to give credit to the defense. It's been 8 turnovers now in 2 games. They really only allowed 2 touchdowns, and they allowed them in the second quarter, and then they shut the door. So, I mean, defensively, I think there were some holes in the pass defense, but the bottom line is they only allowed 2 touchdowns. But I think the kicking is something that needs addressed.
The only observation I would make from a defensive standpoint, I'd like to see more pressure from the front 4. We're getting to the quarterback with a blitz scheme and so forth, and that does expose us. That aggressive style of defense can allow an offense to get a lot of one-on-one in space, and we miss a tackle or 2, it's a big play there. So I know I'm satisfied with what I've seen thus far from Manny Diaz and what he's done. Let's get some more pressure. Let's get a better pass rush from the front 4. That's really my only critique of the defense.
But going back to the kickers, they were 0 for 2 on the field goals. 2 is not infinity, of course, and we always want perfection, especially from the kickers. But Neil, what are those concerns, like specific concerns that you have with them? Of course, always rising to the occasion is a thing, but
well, I think Pinniger. I mean, you don't expect Xander to make a 56-yard field goal at that point. But James pointed out some inconsistency in the kickoff team. But really, you've had a couple extra points blocked. You've missed 2 makeable field goals this year with a veteran kicker. So these are going to, against Minnesota, Ohio State, and Michigan, they'll be magnified.
Listen, it's proven that analytics work. I mean, there's no question about it. But I wonder with this kicking situation, are we at a point of paralysis by analysis? Yeah. You have one guy who kicks.
Definitely one of those positions, too. Some analytics are so straightforward.
Right. You have one guy kicking shorter field goals. You have one guy kicking longer field goals. You have one guy kick off. He didn't do a good job. You put another guy into kickoff. He didn't do a good job. You put a third guy into kickoff. I mean, what happened to the days where you used to have one kicker who just handled everything? And the reason I think
all the bars are gone.
Right. The reason I think it could be an issue, seriously, is because you wonder when all these changes are happening, what's happening to the kickers mentally. This stuff may all work perfectly well in practice, but when you get out there in the game, at some point you just say, Pinniger, you're the guy, or Sander, you're the guy.
It's definitely a mental aspect that it makes kickers and punters definitely a unique type of football player. And Bill, with that type of unique pressure that they have, as a team, how are you supposed to support him if he's missing field goals but everyone at the end of the day, everyone will blow a block, everyone will miss a catch or do something incorrect. But
really
those are so obvious.
The block wasn't his fault. I mean, the kid jumped right over.
It's recognizable. It's magnified when a kicker misses a key kick. But it's part of the game. You as a good team should rally around any kind of adversity, a block kick, things like that, and respond. Now, if we need to make a change, I agree with you, Mark. I don't think we do that intra-game. I think we have a kicking competition midweek and come out with the survivor of that gets to handle all the kicking duties for that game. That type of confidence, I think, not having a kicker, you've had Massimo on here in the past. He may be better versed to speak to it than me.
All right, so you mentioned the defense, and when we come back, we'll break down that some more, along with the wonderful performance from freshman Katron Allen. Don't go anywhere.
The NitWits are being brought to you by Irwin Financial Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed and Solani Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntingdon. And by McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
Here's a look around the Big Ten. Wisconsin absolutely walloped on the road at Ohio State. Maryland falling to Michigan. Minnesota getting a big road win. Cincinnati beating Indiana, Rutgers falling at Iowa. And then here's the interesting one. Miami of Ohio upsetting Northwestern. So interesting time in the Big Ten. We are getting right into the swing of things. So another part of the game yesterday, the defense, the 4 turnovers was huge. Overall, what part stood out to you as the thing to hang your hat on if you're Manny Diaz?
Well, looking ahead, and seeing that Ohio State game last night, I think if Penn State can continue to progress and can go into this game undefeated with Ohio State, I know there's a big if. We got there's a lot of water left to swim. Manny Diaz scheming against Ryan Day. I think that's going to be pretty fascinating. There's that they've broken up 41 passes so far this year. It's like an ungodly number for them, and that tells me that there's a lot more man coverage, right? And that they're sending people, even though they're sending people on blitz, but they're not necessarily the linebackers. Some are the secondary people.
I can't remember them being this deep at corner, and guys are playing at elite levels. You have a situation where Johnny Dixon steps in to start in place of Kalen King, and Johnny Dixon breaks up 3 passes and comes away with an interception. Kalen King has 4 pass breakups.
He played great.
Causes a fumble, recovers a fumble. Joey Porter Jr. with 3 pass breakups, and the confidence they're playing with. Doing this bird, whatever it is, after their big plays, I think it's great. Bill, one thing I would say, one thing I would say about the front 4 is I think they're doing a good job of maybe not getting home consistently, but putting enough pressure on that the DBs are able to make some plays. So I agree with you that you need the sacks to start coming, but I think one of the reasons the DBs are coming up with these plays is because there is some pressures coming up front.
I'll clarify my point. I would like to see that that quick edge rusher beat a lesser skilled offensive lineman around the corner. I'd like to see push up front. It's an active defense. It's an aggressive defense. I think it's vastly improved. You force turnovers. We win that game. You've got athletes at corner that can stay and cover guys one-on-one. I hope it doesn't come back to haunt us at some point, but it helps to get that. Overall, though, I'm very pleased. They've gone on a road. They've beaten 2 Power 5 teams in different manners, but that defense has stepped up, and I think it's a team strength right now.
And when you're
you
on
had
the
52
sideline,
dropbacks and only 2 sacks, and they were on the last series by, deny.
and when you're on the sidelines as the offense and you're seeing the defense, flying all over the no-fly zone, it's energetic, it's fun. How does that energize the offense and vice versa?
When you generate turnovers, when you create a short field, it's a great deal of pressure taken off having to go 80 yards and a sustained drive or whatever. You can score points pretty quickly. You capitalize on those kind of things. You're energized from it. You really are and they're your teammates. You want them to do well.
Well, we've seen complimentary football too. Barney Moore has been tremendous as a punter, but how many times have we seen him pin a team deep, the defense come in and play really well, and then the offense gets a short field and then goes in and scores. That's complimentary football at its best. And I think that Barney Moore,
He's dropping those right on the 1 yard line.
That one that went right at it took a right turn and went out at the 4 yard line, and then that's something else.
Well, I thought it was pretty cool on a day where you had Gansitano and the representation of John Bruno, Ralph Giacomaro, Massimo there.
Yeah.
That Barney, but the special teams and the defense created short fields for the offense yesterday. Really, 3 of them.
And speaking of the offense, Katron Allen, the freshman, standing out in this one. We have some stats of him. He had 13 carries for 111 yards, a touchdown. He's averaging 6 yards per carry, which is 10th in the conference. And for the 3rd straight game, Penn State running as a running back who finished for more than 100 yards. So overall, really great performance from a freshman. Him and Singleton are a pretty good 1-2 punch there across the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think the beauty of it is that a week after Singleton blows up and is being mentioned as a dark horse Heisman candidate, he didn't run particularly well early in this game. And in the second quarter, you could see Jaywan Sider, the running backs coach, get on him for bumping out wide. And after that, Katron Allen got the majority of the carries. That is perfect. That is perfect. You need competition at every single position. Nobody is doubting how good Nick Singleton is.
Sure.
But if he's not having a great game and you could put this guy in, wow.
Well, this guy's feet and his vision really are impressive, the way he dances to daylight. Singleton had 1 burst for 21, and then he had 11 other carries for 21.
So we talked to Caden Wallace after the game, and he had this amazing soundbite about how when Singleton and Allen run by, he said it's whoosh, and you can feel this wind. He said it's like nothing he's ever had before. We ran it in the Sunday newscast, so everyone tune in online. It was just a great soundbite, a little more eloquent than that. Bill, when you have a guy that is that special level of speed, that special level of explosiveness, what's that confidence like in the O-line?
Did you play with any good backs?
None come to mind.
Who was that Warner guy?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Tell me the last time we've had 2 true freshmen deliver. They're almost instant impact guys, and I can't recall either of them. I thought about this on the way over here. This inside-outside kind of feature. You go back to the early 70s with the Miami Dolphins. You got Mercury Morris outside, and you got Larry Zonka power inside. It's a feature we haven't offered. It is yet another thing a defense has to deal with. Can you track down a guy that seems to outrun everybody, or can you withstand a guy that's doing very well in between the tackles? It's a good problem to have.
Well, it's different now, too, because these true freshmen really you're playing as a true freshman. I mean, I think if you look back to Goon's class in the early 90s, he had Kajana and Mike Archie and J.T. Morris and Stephen Pitts. So there have been times where they've had really good backs, but they weren't really pressed into action because the scholarship limits were so much bigger. Now, with NIL, with the transfer portal, you get a good player on campus, you better get him in the game and get him playing.
Most of these guys back in your era redshirted right away, may have switched positions, and the clock wasn't ticking immediately like it is now.
And there was depth there. Kurt Warner steps in and absolutely does, but he steps into a team that's Mike Gooman, Matt Suey, Booker Moore. I mean, there was some playing time to be carved out. Here, the depth isn't quite. It's just, again, it's a good problem to have young guys step in and contribute immediately.
Good problem to have. We got to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll talk about a couple visitors that came to Beaver Stadium. Don't go anywhere.
The NitWits are being brought to you by RE/MAX Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry. The answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage. No matter what type of weather, we're a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store. And by Kogan Electric, lighting the way for you.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
Welcome back to Nittany Nation Overtime. So yesterday at Beaver Stadium, some visitors came by. Teams usually get honored at these games. Of course, Bill came back with his 82 teammates. It's like to be back with those guys on the field again.
Yeah, we just have a great day. It's a really close-knit group, a lot of chemistry. I told Neil earlier, 40 years ago, it seemed like it was 15 minutes. And guys sharing stories. They now talk about their kids and their that kind of thing. But it is a privilege and an honor to come back and be recognized in that fashion. And all of us are just thrilled. We're thrilled the team is doing well. We're thrilled that most of us are still here. And as I mentioned, just privileged to be part of and to be officially recognized to win Penn State's first national championship.
Hey, you'll always be number one, the first team to win the national championship.
Yeah.
You wrote a book. Show the cover of the book real quick.
He lost his book.
He
Hidden
didn't
under the
lose
couch.
the book. He did not.
Well, I was
When
supposed
the
to be in
Lions
middle.
roared. It's a fun read. Build
It's about the 82 team.
It built a tremendous job with it.
Thank you.
Any Penn State fan especially from that era, would enjoy it.
Thank you.
Belated and continued congratulations.
Yeah,
on
yeah,
that,
yeah.
Bill.
And again, the stories are what make it, and it is not me telling them, it's me just saying, what was your experience? And these guys just, such vivid recollections, what Joe meant to them, what it meant to represent Penn State. It was a great weekend, really was.
What were some of those stories, if you can share any of the good ones that you reminisce?
The one that comes to mind is what happened the night after the game. We fly back to Harrisburg. There's 5,000 people at the airport. It's dusk, it's dark, it's cold, it's January 2nd, and you pile onto these Greyhound buses for a 90-minute ride, and you go up 322, pitch dark, and every small town has a fire engine and the sirens going and waving the foam fingers. You only realize at that time what it meant to so many people. You know, you're happy to represent Penn State and win a game and be recognized in that manner, but it gave Penn State fans truly a chance to finally validate that we truly are number one. So.
And Bill, as much as people remember Joe for his 3 yards in a cloud of dust offense, that was a kind of revolutionary offense. The first one, right, to have more passing yards than rushing yards for a national championship team with great players all over.
Players.
To Joe's credit, he recognized the talent he had at the skill position. He had a returning starter at quarterback. He had a healthy Kurt Warner. Those guys, a lot of them stayed up and run 7-on-7 drills in the summertime, got their timing down. Kenny Jackson, Greg Getty was, in my opinion, the best set of skilled players in the country, and it gave an inexperienced offensive line the chance to get their feet under them and get it. And again, an underrated defense. Joe made some changes mid-season, and they responded, and we just had a lot of things fall into place to be able to go.
And a really good representation of the class. And you go back and look at that era, 80, 81, 82. And I mean, this is pre Big Ten, but you're playing Notre Dame, Alabama in a 10-year series, Nebraska, Miami. Marino was at Pitt. Hostetler had gone from Penn State to West Virginia. Flutie was at BC. Syracuse was good. I mean, the East was a beast. Just a terrific, so many great players and great games.
80s football.
Those early 80s, that 3-year window. Go take a look at those schedules.
It was a fun time to watch. But when we come back, the best part of the day, the Nitwit of the week. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
The Nitwits are being brought to you by Fullington Tours, offering round-trip transportation to and from Beaver Stadium from locations in State College and Altoona. By Blair Candy Company, the one-stop shop for all your tailgating needs. Candy, snacks, paper supplies, and more. By Lions 24/7 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
Welcome back to Nittany Nation Overtime. Sorry, a little voice crack there. Really into all this Penn State
Getting emotional.
football. Very emotional about my first Nitwit of the week. I'm finally on the board with this one. Neil is, of course, on top. Yeah, really emotional here. So I pick Penn State going to win this next one against Northwestern, 34-10.
Yeah, Northwestern really struggling, lost 3 straight. I will go Penn State 39-14.
39-14. Okay, I got to do the math on the fly. I think the fact that Penn State didn't play all that, a complete game last week, will bode well better this week, especially going into a bye. I'm going to say Penn State 43, Northwestern 13.
Phil, what about you?
And I think the defense continues to play great football, generates turnovers. I'm picking 45-7.
So wins all across the board for Penn State. Thank you so much for watching this. Your Nittany Nation Overtime is also on a podcast. It's on Spotify and iTunes. That'll drop Monday, so you can check that out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here next week.
The Nitwits have been brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed and Solaney Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntingdon. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Remax Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage, no matter what type of weather, we're a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store. By Kogan Electric, lighting the way for you. By NovaCare, Altoona and State College, we proudly support Penn State football. By Fullington Tours, offering round-trip transportation to and from Beaver Stadium from locations in State College and Altoona. By Blair Candy Company, the one-stop shop for all your tailgating needs. Candy, snacks, paper supplies, and more. By Lions 24/7 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.